Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. In front of me, I have an awesome guest, Justin Murphy. He is the owner of I Coach Nutrition. He is a nutrition coach, and we're going to talk more about what we like to consider like a lifestyle coach. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anyways, Justin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Tony, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super excited to dive into our conversation after the great conversation we just had, and excited to release that podcast so that your listeners can listen to that one too. But I'm excited. It's always a good time catching up with you. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love connecting with Justin. Justin and I have connected maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Before I had my own podcast, he was on the Gym Wits podcast. If you guys know, I'm a co-host to that podcast. And back then I remember I had heard you on another podcast, and you had shared your story, and I just really appreciated kind of your vulnerability. And it's just so awesome too, to just see your growth from then till now, and just, everything that has changed in you. So I would love for you, if you're okay with it, to take people a little bit way back. Like whenever I go on a podcast, I talk about my childhood and kind of how I ended up here. So I would love for you to, if you don't mind, maybe sharing a little bit more about how you became a nutrition coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, taking it back all the way to childhood, I was somebody that I was an only child till I was 8 years old, and my parents were trying to have, get me brother and sisters that whole time, but unfortunately just had issues and ended up having twins through in vitro when I was 8 years old. They were born on Christmas Eve, and then had another one unexpected 1 year later. So my life went from being like, I'd say, a pretty spoiled kid to, now becoming like essentially like a second dad to these kids, because my dad was always gone working. So, but loved it. I mean, I think it taught me a lot kind of growing up. I was super into sports. I played baseball, football, basketball, soccer, track, everything. And I did that, all through elementary school, middle school, high school. I would say for me, things got a little interesting when I was like in high school, and even in middle school a little bit. I kind of started falling into like the bad crowd, if you will. I started kind of caring a lot more about like being cool and like fitting in and like being popular than really probably anything else. And that really took over, because at my school, like, I think it's different at every high school, but like my school, like drugs were a really big thing, like, and particularly like ecstasy was a huge thing there. There was kids, like I did ecstasy before I ever smoked weed. Like ecstasy was like, it was a big drug at our school. And so, like anything else, like any other story I've heard similar to this, it's like people start by just doing it. And so we were just like partying and, like drinking and smoking weed and doing ecstasy and just partying, like acting as if we're essentially like, invincible and just living this like, I don't know, like fast lifestyle, if you will. Right. Mm-hmm. So, as that started happening, I saw my sports performance start to decline. Right. Everything from like I stopped doing track because my time just got slower and slower and slower. Somehow I was still able to keep my football scholarship that I got to go to college to play. But things just like, I would say from like 15 to like 18 were just, I was living my life as careless as you possibly could. I had no responsibility. I was just living as if I was like invincible. And so, that caught up to me as it always does with everyone. Right. And, it got to a point where like, I wasn't just doing these drugs. Now I was like going to these nightclubs and selling drugs and making all this money. And so I got into a point where it was like really hard to, kind of get out of that lifestyle. Luckily for me, I had gotten almost a full ride scholarship to go play football. And so that was my ticket out. And so I left. I basically like transitioned everything over to friends and I left and I was out. Well, that lifestyle didn't leave me. I get to college here, and even though I'm going to play college football, what do? I attract those type of people, right? So it's like immediately I start hanging out with, like the bad kids of that football team. And before I know it, to cut a long story short, basically got kicked out of that school with 3 days left in my first semester. And I ended up in jail. I was in jail. I was facing all these charges, and at 18 years old, facing felonies, like I thought my life was over. And when I tell this story, I guess I always have to throw it out there, because a lot of people are like, oh, because he went to jail for drugs, and I actually didn't. I got lucky. I probably would have been in jail for a lot longer if that would have been the case. But we got in trouble. Basically what ended up happening is we were going through this school, and we found a backpack, and there was like a wallet inside the backpack. And so we took the wallet, and actually I didn't even go with them. So it's crazy that I got like in trouble for this, but I had to go to class. They went to Walmart, to McDonald's, and to the gas station and used the credit card. So when they arrested us, obviously they're trying to charge, all three of us with like credit card theft and all this, which leads to like jail time and felonies. And so I'm sitting here thinking to myself like, oh my God, my life is over. Right. And I wasn't religious at that time whatsoever. And that night, I was in a jail cell. I was facing 2 felonies, 7 misdemeanors, and 2 years in jail. My jail cell mate, or whatever you want to call it, was in there for stabbing 2 people. He's in there for 7 years for stabbing 2 people. And for whatever reason, people still ask me to this day, like, why did you do it? And I have no idea why, but I saw a Bible, I grabbed the Bible, and I read the Bible the whole night. And I was only in jail for 24 hours. So I don't want to act as if I'm like this hardcore dude, but that 24 hours and reading the Bible and like basically praying to God for the first time as to like, look, I know that these last 2-3 years or whatever, like I have not been living my life in a way that, you would want me to, essentially. Right. And I didn't come from a bad family or anything like that. So like I was letting my parents down. I was letting my brother and sisters down. And I basically asked for like a second chance. I was like, God, if you can just, and it's so crazy. Every time I tell a story, it's like, it gets emotional, right? But it's like, if you can just like give me this second chance at life, I promise I'll flip the switch here, and I'll dedicate the rest of my life to helping other people rather than hurting people. Because let's be real, if I'm sitting here selling ecstasy to people in the streets, like that's hurting them, right? So, of course. I don't know why. I don't know why I got a second chance. I don't know why that happened, but literally the next morning, the bail, you pay 10% to get out. So it was like $100,000 bail. So I had to pay 10 grand. My dad told me growing up my whole life, he would never bail me out of jail. That next morning, I got bailed out of jail. At 20, my parents were there. My brother and sisters were there. And walking out to face them was the worst thing probably one of the worst things I've ever experienced, because they're all in tears. You feel like a failure. You feel pathetic. You feel like you just let your whole family down. And then, on top of that, you're facing, charges, and you have to pay all this money. And like, you just think your life's over at 18, which is a very sad and scary place. It was the darkest place I'd ever been at. It was the lowest low. And so, I came back. It's great that I got the second chance and second opportunity. I ended up getting, let off very, very easy, in a sense that I only got 5 misdemeanors. So I didn't get a felony on my record at 18 years old, which is a blessing. And I got put on probation to where as long as I didn't get in trouble for the next 3 years in Kansas, those 5 misdemeanors got expunged. And so I didn't get in trouble. I got them expunged. And so now it's like nothing ever happened before, which is, again, a blessing, right?
Right.
But I still, I came back and I was like, it's not like the switch just flipped for me. I could have gone right back. I still had all the same connections, all the same friends. I could have gone right back into it. And I was making a lot of money, right? So it's like, I could have gone right back into that. But for whatever reason, I chose not to. And I knew I needed to get a job. I knew I needed to get, in school and all that. So I started going to community college. I actually went to an interview with Home Depot. Y'all have Home Depots up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I go to an interview with Home Depot. I had an interview for Home Depot and for 24 Hour Fitness. Okay. When I came back, and I go to the Home Depot interview first, I get no-showed from like the hiring manager. Okay. And the next day I had my 24-hour fitness interview. Ended up getting the job at 24-hour fitness, and I'm making minimum wage folding towels at the front desk. This is what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Then I do that for a few months. One of the trainers comes up to me and he was like, hey, he's like, you want to work out with us? Because I guess he had seen me working out. And I was like, sure, start working out with him. And then they're like, why are you working front desk? Why are you not a trainer? I'm like, what the hell is a trainer? And so I long story short with that, I was like, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get certified. I'm going to try to get certified. I'm going to become a personal trainer. I'm going to start doing all this while I'm in school, and we'll see what happens. And I go to study for NASM, my first cert, and I was making minimum wage, so spending $750 at the time was like a huge investment.
Yeah.
And I failed the test. The first time.
It's hard. It's really hard. I haven't taken it. I've just studied. I picked it up to study for it. And then I'm like, you know what? I'll let trainers do their jobs. I'll be a dietitian. But it's hard.
Well, for me, yeah, I mean, it was hard, but more than the fact it was hard, it was just another letdown. It was like, here I am, I hit the lowest low. I try to start doing something positive. I try to start bettering myself. And then, so it was like, luckily I had a club manager, a fitness manager, a membership manager that were all kind of on my team. And dude, go study harder, study for, another month or 3 months or whatever, and then retake it. So long story short, I retake it. I passed the test. From there, I become the lead grossing trainer in the gym. I was there for 3 or 4 years. The biggest month I had, I did 204 sessions in 1 month, which led to $27,000 in 1 month, produced just by me. Mm-hmm. So I was the top grossing trainer there. That led into me getting into CrossFit and competing in CrossFit and qualifying for regionals and kind of doing the whole strength conditioning coaching thing there. And the whole time I'm going through school, decided I wanted to pursue my degree in nutrition, get my nutrition degree. And then from there, basically started my own online nutrition coaching company. And that's kind of been what the last, I've been online now for 3 years, but essentially the last 2 years have been my own business. I had the opportunity to build an online nutrition coaching company at the business I was at before. And then I was able to kind of finally get the belief in myself to make the jump and finally do it for me. So 8 years in person in the field, and then now the last almost 2.5 years online. So
yeah,
that's
awesome.
That's the story of the last 10, 11 years for me.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know it can be easy, but I believe there's just so much in there that we could unpack. And I would just say the biggest thing I heard is you didn't go into the detail of that disappointment, of that feeling when am I going to get a break, or why I should just go back to selling drugs. Because it's so true. Once you're in that game, and I don't know it well like that, but I just know it's hard. If you're making a lot of money, although it's illegal, money helps relieve stress and it helps get you things. And now you're trying to do things by the book, and it's just it takes a lot longer and it's a lot harder to get there. But you kept saying I don't know why I got this chance, but I know you know why, because now you're helping other people live out their lives and literally changing their lives for the better through nutrition. And we know that there was no coincidence that Home Depot manager didn't show up. You were meant to be a trainer. You were meant to go to school for nutrition. You were meant to be a nutrition coach. It took a little bit of time for you to see that and to get there. But I mean, this is there's a saying everything happens for a reason, and sometimes it doesn't always fit, but in this situation, it definitely fits. Everything happened for a reason, and that's why you're here today.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. These days, I definitely know why, right? But back then, I had no idea that this is what I'd be doing 10 years from now. It was all I knew was that I came back, I was looked upon as if I was this, POS essentially because I was homecoming and the homecoming king court nominee, and I was one of just a few kids that got a college football scholarship, and so I was looked at as the kid that took that for granted and went up and just wasted the opportunity, and I'm a piece of crap, Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I mean it was I think it was a lot, like there was definitely some of it where it was like, I just wanted to prove people wrong. Like I didn't want their opinion to define me, and I didn't want my past to define me. And I knew that like I got a second chance, and I was ultimately in control of my destiny. And I knew I had to work my ass off going forward. And so it's like, you know, I even to this day, it's like I will continue to remind myself, like the reason why I do what I do, and like the reason why I help people is because I got that gift. Like, I mean, especially like knowing my dad and stuff, like my dad's not necessarily the best people person. And so I'm like, I got a gift that night, like that God gave me an understanding to be able to be empathetic with people in their situations and what they're going through, and also be able to give them that belief that I can help them through it, and like I can help them to overcome it, because I've had to overcome so much adversity in my life up to this point.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I definitely think is worth talking about is, although you help people with their nutrition, you know, we both notice this, like other aspects of their lives change. But before that, I want to talk about like your application process, or like before you even work with someone, you ask them like a series of questions. Like I ask questions, but you go deep, like from the jump, which I love, which is really, because we all know that as you begin to work with the client, it goes a little bit, you know, we got to talk about that other stuff, because otherwise we're not going to make much progress in the nutrition department, because there's usually other things standing in the way. So I would love to hear a little bit more about kind of, if you could maybe give us an example of some of those questions that you ask, some of the things that you've noticed through coaching so many clients over the years, of kind of what tends to be maybe like a before and after picture. So before they have their nutrition together, what it looks like, and then after, and where's the transformation?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think just like in the intake process, and then like starting to work with a new client, I mean, from that first initial like discovery call to that initial like assessment call. So the discovery call, I mean, as you know, sometimes that's maybe 30 minutes, sometimes that dives into an hour, maybe even longer. I don't know. But really what my goal is in that free discovery call, and then once they sign up as a client, actually going through the initial assessment process is, and honestly, probably even into that first month would be, I want to learn as much about you as I possibly can. I want to get you to essentially know, like, and trust me as much as possible. Right. And I think social media is amazing because people get to kind of build that connection before they ever actually talk to you or meet you, which is awesome. But it's just trying to expand on that more. And so like a lot of those questions, I mean, of course, there's like the nutrition and fitness and all that, but it's like a lot of these questions are diving more into them, like as a person, and learning more about them as an individual, you know, their family, their past, their history, like what we were talking about, you know, on the podcast that we did. It's like, if I can't get these people to feel comfortable to tell me about some of those things that have impacted them up to this point in their life, then how am I going to be able to help them actually change their life?
Right.
And we all know most of this stuff is so much deeper than the nutrition. I mean, it's peeling back those layers of the onion and figuring out like, what is it truly that's holding you back? And it's great that you have this goal, but why? Why do you want to accomplish this goal? And not having it superficial, like getting deep, getting as deep as we possibly can, and asking those questions. Like a very common thing I hear all the time is, wow, like if they've worked with other coaches before, wow, I've never been asked those deep questions. Like I've never been asked about, you know, like for example, like you, like, I mean, if I was your coach, I would 100% want to know within that first month about that situation there with, you know, that we talked about there with family, right? Mm-hmm. Because I know that that's been affecting you up to this point, unless you overcame it through therapy at some point, you know what I mean? So like knowing that you're in the midst of that and you're going through that, like that's going to affect the way that I coach you 100%, you know? Mm-hmm. So I guess I wouldn't say that it's necessarily these like groundbreaking questions that are just like, oh my gosh, it's more about just like within that free discovery call and within that first assessment call, which that first assessment call typically takes about an hour. Between those two calls right there, and then within that, essentially that first coaching call, which eventually that would probably make up about the first month, like I want to make sure, again, my goal is to learn as much about you as I possibly can to make you feel like you're not just another number that I'm working with, not just another client I'm working with. And that's another big reason I only work with so many people at once, right?
Yeah.
But that's it, because I think that's what people are looking for. People are looking for coaches that care. People are looking for coaches that like will invest in that human connection element and actually, I guess plain and simple, just caring, like truly actually giving, giving a crap about you, right? Like,
yeah, no, seriously, I can't even tell you how many times, like I'm, with my, like when I respond to people, I'm very I'm like pretty much in the app, like all day. I use an app with my clients, and they're always like, you don't need to respond right away. Like, it's amazing that you do. I appreciate that you do. I'm like, no, that's what you signed up for. You signed up for someone that you can depend on, someone that you can talk to, somebody that you can, you don't need to wait a week or even a full 24 to 48 hours before you get an answer of something as simple as like, is it okay to have Diet Coke or something? You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason why, someone should have to kind of wait that long. So I agree with you. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure as you've seen, I mean, I think we've built our practice. We've built our coaching program based off a lot of our experiences up into this point. Like, I've worked with tons of really bad coaches and done really bad programs and like not got the experience that I wanted to get. And so, like these days, it's like my goal is to make this like the best experience that you have ever gone through and that you will ever go through in terms of like the coaching process. And more times than not, I always joke, it's like people come to me for like nutrition coaching, but like what they leave with is like the mindset that's developed along the way. It's building that foundation of nutrition and fitness and watching it carry over into their personal and professional life. So they're like, man, dude, everything you taught me with nutrition, like losing the weight, all that was great, but I'm a better husband now, right? I'm a better father. I'm crushing it at work. I'm getting promoted. Like, we do this nutrition and fitness stuff so that we can feel our best, look our best, perform our best, and go crush it in life and live our best life, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, I hope by the time that you go through the program, you graduate from the program. I call it like I Coach University. It's like I don't want you to have to go and I don't want you to go back to that cycle that you were going through before you got to me.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I want this to stop because it's like being in an abusive relationship or something, like,
no, it really is insanity.
You have so much energy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really is. And we spoke about this on your podcast. So, I'll encourage people to go listen to that, but really just repeating the same cycles over and over and over again. And it's like, that is not what life is about. Like, it's really not. Like, you were not put on this earth to lose weight and pay bills. Like, that is literally how most people spend their entire life. And it's unfortunate and it's really sad. And what you're saying is that if you can finally break that cycle and find a way to find something that works for you, you and I do something very similar, our coaching styles. We don't, we're not against dieting, but we just don't really, we know that that's not the ultimate long-term solution. It's that those diets provide some sort of data, but ultimately you need to figure out what works best for you. And you can't find that on the internet, right? And by doing that, you not only are going to feel better and look better and have better relationships, but you're going to get promoted. You're going to do better you're going to do better at your job. Like, your life in general will get better. So we were talking offline earlier. A lot of people ask us if we're life coaches, and no, we're not. We're not certified in life coaching, but really what we're doing is we really are helping people live healthier and happier lives. And so if you were going to call us anything, we're lifestyle coaches, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think like at the end of the day, it's like, of course we want to stay within our scope and like all of that. But it's like, look, at the end of the day, like when somebody comes to work with me, like I'm here to change their life. I'm here to transform their life. I'm here to help them reach their, I mean, if they're religious, their God-given potential in life.
Right.
Exactly. And because again, like, what am I trying to do? What have I been trying to do now for these last 10, 11 years since I was sitting in a jail cell at 18 years old? I've been trying to live and reach my God-given potential in life. And when I say that, it's like, the beautiful part about it is it never ends. It's like, that's something I will work towards until I die.
Right.
It's this quest of personal and professional development. And that's what fuels my life, because if I don't stay busy like that, like, I'm a human being, and I come from a past of like not making right decisions sometimes and not living a life I'm proud of. And, now that I have a son, it's like my why just got way stronger because, as we were talking about, again, on that other podcast, it's like, they are going to listen to what we say, and they're also going to watch what we do. And so I have to lead from the front. Before I was leading from the front for my clients, which I still am, but now it's like I'm leading from the front for my family, more important than anything else, because that is my why. And that why is so strong for me that it can help me overcome any how that comes my way. Right. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something we should expand on a little bit more, where you said, like, as long as you're alive, you're going to continuously strive to be better than you were yesterday. And I think that's really great. And I think that speaks volumes, where so many people are just so fixated on getting to the end that they don't enjoy the journey, or they'll even torture themselves and do not stupid, I don't like to use that word, but like, not the smartest, like nutrition plans, like that are super restrictive and just not enjoyable. And it's like, you need to eat to live every day. Like, it's not like an option. Like, we can, this is something that's going to affect your livelihood, like your day-to-day, it's going to affect you on a day-to-day basis. So we want your plan to be enjoyable, right? So we want it to be something that you're not just waiting to get to the end to celebrate, that you're literally celebrating your small wins throughout it. So with that being said, are there any things that you either look for or implement maybe with your clients that kind of show, I guess, that they're enjoying it? Or what should someone be? I don't know how to ask this question. I don't know if you're like understand what I'm trying to say, but like, is there anything that you would encourage someone to implement in their either nutrition plan or fitness regimen or something that's going to bring them joy, rather than it feeling kind of like really hard to stick to?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that obviously, like anything that we're going to do, like hopefully you're going into it as, can I do this for the rest of my life? Or am I building the lifestyle that I want to live, going forward for the rest of my life, like to prioritize my health, to live a long, healthy life, and to be able to see my kids grow up and all that. Right. But it's like, I guess the piece is we have to build awareness, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I have to build awareness. You have to track in some way. And look, MyFitnessPal is not for everybody. Like you can do other things. You can do a food picture log. You could do like, we have a habit tracker that we use. And the habit tracker is like my favorite thing, because it's built in a Google Sheet. And if you can imagine 365 days of filling out this habit tracker, well, it allows you to look past just like the scale, right? Like so many people, the only indicator of success they look at is like stepping on that scale every day. And it's like, I would argue, I mean, yes, that is something we'd look at. It's a data point, but there's so many other data points we want to look into as well. So for example, with this habit tracker, there's like, and we, we'll customize it to each person individually, but it's like some of the things would be maybe like incorporating a morning routine, a night routine, grocery shopping, 1 or 2 times a week, making sure that you're eating an adequate amount of protein intake, making sure you're getting enough veggies and fruits each day, like tracking your workouts, just tracking your hydration, like all these different like habits, right? And that's one thing, like I try to actually get my clients to read the book Atomic Habits from James Clear, because I think that like it essentially makes them truly understand exactly what we're going through the process. And because I feel like a lot of clients, they'll figure it out. Like, after a few months, they're like, man, this is like different than anything I've ever done before, because I'm actually like slowly building habits rather than trying to do like the overhaul approach. They're the all or nothing mentality. Right. So, but you'll see these people, right? And so you'll track in the beginning, like maybe they're not doing any of these things, or maybe they're like, so they're never checking off the boxes. They're not consistent with any of these habits. Right. And then as time goes on, they get more and more and more consistent with their habits. So they build the awareness as like, let's say, even if the scale isn't going in the direction they want, right? Like, well, awesome. These other 13 different data points we're tracking, you're making improvements on, right? And that's sometimes the thing that we need to enjoy the process and fall in love with the journey. Because if you're always looking at that outcome, and if the goal is weight loss, which so many people, that's their goal, okay, well, if all you do is you look at the day-to-day weigh-ins there and they affect you psychologically day-to-day and affect your choices, you're probably setting yourself up for self-sabotage, and you're probably not going to be successful, and you're going to repeat this vicious cycle on and on and on again. So I think that's the big piece, is like, we got to make sure that we have metrics in place. We're tracking the data that we need to be able to build the awareness that both the coach and the client needs to be able to, make the changes that we need to make.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're not tracking anything, then you can't change anything. And I think a lot of people, they don't have maybe the self-awareness that they think they have.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it definitely takes tracking to really understand kind of where those areas of opportunity are to create change. I definitely agree with you. I think that, it's just, you think about it, how many people you can't even remember what you had for breakfast, like until you like really sit down and really think about it. It's like, oh, that's what I had, and then I also had that and I had a little bit of that. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. I think awareness is definitely like the first thing to creating change. And then, like you said, having other data points outside of just the scale is super helpful. And it can help you see like, wow, I'm doing something, I said I was going to do this and I'm doing it. And I think that helps build that momentum and that self-confidence, and it makes the journey a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like when we set goals, right? So maybe you're setting this goal. Well, you might have this big goal you want to accomplish, but you have to reverse engineer the process. You have to break it down into all these little small goals. And that's what's happening here. I mean, I call it habit stacking, right? So it's like, we're not going to try to build a new habit until you get this habit down. Yeah. And when we start the process here, going through the assessment, we're going to identify all the habits that we need to work on and improve on that are going to get you to that goal, to that end goal there. And, more times than not, by the end of the process, it's not even about the weight anymore, right? Because of course there's weight loss, of course there's body comp changes and all that, but it's like, dude, I feel so amazing. Like I haven't felt this way since, in 10 years or 20 years or whatever, right? And so I think that's the biggest piece, is just getting people to understand, essentially getting them out of the diet culture mentality and what they're so used to, what's been ingrained into them, what they've been essentially brainwashed by, and getting them to actually understand, the facts, what's actually true. And ultimately when that happens, it just gives them so much more freedom and flexibility to build the lifestyle that they want to build.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think what you and I do is so similar. We're educating people about what's true and not true. We're helping them identify that what they've done before clearly is not working, so we need to try another approach and focus on her habits rather than going all in and all out. And then that immense amount of support. And really having them understand that they have a friend, they have someone who truly gets them, has been there, and has worked through it and wants to teach them and show them how to get to that same place. So honestly, absolutely. Justin, what you do, I just want to say, I really appreciate you. I really, really respect it, because there aren't a lot of people that have that do it. Like, where you and I, like I said, this is why I love having people on my podcast that I like get and I vibe with, is like, you and I really are very similar on, we don't take on a ton of clients. We take on the few that are really, really invested and ready to transform and change their life for the better, and truly understand that this is not a quick fix. This is a commitment to being the better version of themselves, and a commitment to being the it's not even a new version of them. It's them, but just that's been kind of, blocked by just stuff.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I 100% agree. And I think maybe the stuff is it's the integrity that they've lost with themselves, with their self, right? I mean, I think back to like me with the example that I gave. I mean, I lost integrity with myself. I was living outside of myself. I was so focused on what everybody else thought about me that I lost myself, right? And it's like, the way I look at it is like every single one of us have an integrity bank account, and it has an operating balance at all times. And so every single time you do something that you say you're going to do and you follow through with it, right? Add $1 to your integrity bank account. And every single time you say you're going to do something, you don't follow through with it, then subtract $1. And it cannot, it's just like the scale. It cannot be something that adds more stress into your life.
Right.
It's got to just be something where it's like, you know what? Like, I'm realizing on a day-to-day basis how many decisions, because they're my choice, decisions that I'm making that are not in line, that are not upholding the integrity in terms of what I want to do, what I say that I want to accomplish. And so that's just it. I mean, I think that's the journey. Is it's like it's trying to figure out how we can start to build back up the integrity with ourselves, because the same thing that's happened to you, look at you now. Like you're a bat, right? Like you're over here, like you're over here doing TED Talks and writing a book. And like, here you were, like back as we talked through the dating, like you didn't have that confidence back then.
No. Yeah.
So it's like you've built up so much integrity with yourself and you became this woman. You know, it's like, it's not that it wasn't there before. It's just like you're empowered now more than ever before.
Right. Yeah. Amen. This is so good. I think I just thought of the name of the podcast. The name always comes at the end. Building Your Integrity Bank Account with Justin Murphy.
Oh, I love it.
Do you like it? Can I do that? Okay, good.
Yeah,
I'll write that down. All right. Anyways, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything that you want to add? Any maybe like last minute suggestions, tips, comments?
Well, I think definitely praying for you guys and everybody that's been affected here, you know, by Corona, and you know that everybody is, you know, just obviously everybody's been affected in so many different ways, and so I don't want to act as if I'm speaking, you know, a general statement here, but it's like I think just, you know, during this time right now, I think a lot of us have learned quite a bit. We've learned from the positives, we've learned from the negatives, and you know, again, from an awareness standpoint, being able to take that awareness and thinking about, okay, once we do get through this and once things do kind of start to go back to quote unquote normal life, you know, what are some of those maybe positive changes that I got from this experience that I can carry with me going forward? Mm-hmm. Right? For example, it's like a lot of people are prioritizing, you know, their activity more. They're cooking more from home. They're spending more time with family. Like there's a lot of amazing things that have come out of this. And so look for those positives because we only have so much energy, right? And so we're in control of where we deploy that energy. And for me, it's like, I want to live the 80-20 lifestyle with everything. So it's like, for me, I'm going to invest at least 80% or more of my energy into the things that I actually have control over. And then maybe 20% or less on things that I don't have control over. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave you with this. One of probably the things that helped my clients the most through this time thus far is to lower their consumption of how much they're watching the news. Mm-hmm. Like I have had so many clients in the beginning, they were like watching the news all the time. And then they started getting into that negative headspace and mindset. And like when they cut it out, they're like, that was right. That was me flipping the switch right there.
And honestly, that's just a life hack. I think that's just a normal thing. I've never been one to watch the news. And obviously when this happened, like you don't want to be oblivious. Like you want to check in just to keep, you know, the basic things, but minimal is all you need. And then in general, yeah, I mean like that, I think I've talked about this before. And I know you would agree, like your car, don't put on the radio, put on a podcast or an audiobook, right? Something, you know, personal development. Try to limit the news that you watch, and maybe instead of reading, you know, news articles, you're reading research articles or something inspirational or uplifting, you know, something that, you know, think about it, just your story alone. If this podcast, there was a positive end to it. It was inspirational. It was showing how just because you're living one way in your life doesn't mean you don't have the opportunity to change it and then change other people's lives. But if you were watching the news, you would unfortunately just see that this kid got arrested and he did drugs and he stole and he ended up in jail and he lost his scholarship. And like you would never see the end to that story. You would just see the negative part to it. So I think that's a really good tip. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's not even just with Corona. I think that's in life. We have to really just decrease how often we watch the news and fill our ears with positivity.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're literally a product of our environment. So it's like everything that we put into our ears, right? Everything we listen to, everything we watch, it's like we are going to spit that out in some way, somehow, at some point. So yeah, I'm the same way. Like I try to not watch the news at all. And even going back, like some people are maybe thinking, they're like, well, God, don't y'all ever have like any downtime or whatever? I'm like, going back to the 80-20 lifestyle, 20% or less of my time is being spent watching Netflix or like doing things that are not productive or serving me or anything like that. And that's just called finding that balance, you know. For
sure.
So.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. All right. So Justin, where can people find you if they want to connect with you, learn more about you, work with you? Where do they go?
Yeah, so probably you can go to the website, iCoachNutrition.com. I'm on Instagram and it's at Coach Justin Murphy. And then the podcast is iCoach Nutrition Radio. And then on Facebook as well, same thing, Justin Murphy. And I have a little Facebook group just like you there, and it's just Team I Coach Nutrition. So
perfect. So we're very similar. All my stuff's all Tips with Tony, and all your stuff is I Coach Nutrition. Very simple. Awesome.
Yes, and I'm the TikTok thing. I've like uploaded videos, but like not like TikTok style videos. Like they were just like old videos I had made, and so they definitely don't fit the platform at all. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't become like a dancing Justin yet, so we'll see if that comes.
Oh man, yeah, it's an interesting thing to see. How it's been. I don't know. There's talks that TikTok might be the new Instagram.
Well, you know what? I think that because I think this quarantine did so much for TikTok because everybody's at home. I think the usage went way up, and I think it's become a much more popular platform.
It was already going to be. You're right. And then this just like catapulted it for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, thank you so much for being here, Justin. Thank you guys for listening. If you're not already subscribed to the Tips with Tony podcast, please subscribe. It allows other people to find it, but more importantly, it notifies you when a new episode comes out every Monday and every Wednesday. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.